And I don't know about you, for me, I've been doing a lot of readings lately, a lot of readings this fall, but they're all of the virtual kind. This is the first time that I've actually got to spend some time with a real live in-person audience, and it's such a treat. So, thank you for being here. It's good to see some real live human beings. I'm going to read probably a couple of poems from Blackbirds Song, just because I haven't read from it for a very long time, and it's only 2 years old now, and yet for probably 18 months, it's kind of been sort of in the dustbin. I haven't read from it for a very long time, and when I was thinking about what I would read tonight, I just thought, well, I don't feel like I'm quite done with that book yet. So I think I'll read just a couple of poems from Blackbirds Song, and then I'll read some poems from the new book, Field Notes for the Self. I think that's what it's called. Yeah. Which came out in March of this year, I guess. Of course, just in time for lockdown. So I think this is the first time that I'm reading from Field Notes to a live audience, aside from my dogs. So they're a good audience. So I hope you all can measure up. No, you don't have to. I'll stop. Maybe I should just read some poems here. So both of these books, Blackbirds Song and Field Notes for the Self, were published by the University of Regina Press. So also I'll give them a shout out while I'm at it. I think they're quite beautiful, attractive books. They've been making some gorgeous books in this series and publishing some really good work, especially these two books. But I've been watching boxing lately, which probably I shouldn't admit that publicly, but I like boxing. Something very heartwarming about the violence. And there's this particular fighter, and the commentators were saying after one of his fights that, yeah, he's extremely gifted and blessed with everything except modesty. Maybe that's why I'm a fan. We have that in common. So this is from Blackbirds Song. The poem has a rather lengthy title, and the title is, "The Path Becomes Narrow, Slight as a Note from a Carved Wood Flute." Just before Easter, 1/2 foot of snow overnight, the boughs of the spruce trees bent low to the ground, not meditating, no, but practicing non-meditation. Their roots still asleep deep in the still frozen earth, morning temperature plunging to 30 below. Is this the immaculate heart of beauty, this frost-deepened austerity? Winter wind whipping bare branches does not sing once upon a time, or forever and forever, or happily ever after, those stories of salvation. You want to be taken by quiet. What you want in the landscape is clarity. What it offers, red poles and sparrows bickering over tiny frost-blackened apples, geese returning north, dragging their shadows, babbling as if to assure themselves not only that they exist, but also that they are not alone. In your meager house in a village on the South Saskatchewan flatlands, human visitors are rare. It is impossible to forget you are immersed in the turning seasons, your gnomic body a wisp, a twist of cloud. Small house, 2 doors, and windows in every wall, nothing but seeing through and thresholds. All winter long, cold and snow slipping beneath doors, light or no light filling windows. Wherever the mind dwells apart and alone is itself a distant place. In 2 months, perhaps you will remember nothing of this day, these thoughts. Summer will have had its way with everything. There will be green leaves on the elm, coneflowers blooming yellow, blackbirds chasing away the crows. You will be able to walk the ditches of the grid road, sage and willow rooted in the flesh and bones of your ancestors. And rather than think, you will simply look. Whatever lives in you concentrated in your eyes. After so long caged in the traps and pitfalls of mind, the land returns you to a currents arising of itself out of the void. And just like that, somehow you found your life again, not having recognized absence until the return. Perhaps it was never tomorrow or another year you were looking for, but simply that single eagle riding the high air this afternoon, far above the pelvic valley that holds Buffalo Pound Lake. 7 white pelicans afloat, blazing in sun, pike drowsing in the shallows, water lapping stones. These are the things that you know. This is how you make peace with 1,000-year-old sorrows, how you keep your empty whole. Is it warm in here? Is it? Oh, thought it was just me. And I assure you this, not that it should make you feel any better, but this cough is just a smoker's cough, so don't smoke. And you at home. I sort of forgot there's like an audience out there as well, or somewhere. Where is the audience? The audience is there?
Do a little switcheroo because the phone that initially was set up was dying. That's good me. It was me. It's dying.
Okay.
So we're on here. So
Well, wherever there's home. Hi, folks. Thank you for joining us as well. I don't think I even acknowledged the folks who are joining on. Is it on Facebook?
Facebook and in the future on other platforms.
I think I found my new publicist here. So there was some mention of Buffalo Pound Lake there, which is a nice place to go, especially in the autumn, I find. Probably just because autumn is my favorite season. But here's another good place to go. This poem is called In the Great Sand Hills. Prairie grass, buffalo and beard grass give way to hills rising to meet sky and form horizon. At the edge, leave your mind lying in the juniper among exposed roots of sagebrush. Your mind, that locked iron box of resentment and ill will. As you ascend, wind and sand desiccate your spirit, which becomes hawk, sharp-shinned. Your spirit, brittle as the remains of a mouse, thumbnail-sized skull, 3 fine broken ribs, a wind-hollowed femur like the spine of a flight feather, a few meager bits of brown fur. Soon you are nothing but body, empty house of thirsting flesh, muscle and sinew. The sun lights you like a candle, a smudge. Burning is your prayer. You will spend the cold night here, gather sun-bleached driftwood to feed a fragile fire as the wind drops its register from screech to baritone. Stars are seeds dormant, waiting for the rain, which like absolution will not come again. Try to sleep, try to dream. It will not be the first time the desert has thwarted human desire. The moon rises orange and full, harvest ready. In some distant field, coyotes gathering around a low stretched hide drum begin to sing. If you still feel the need, name the song hunger, name it desire, name it praise, name, until you are bereft of words. Nothing to do now but wait. And so we're going to read for about a half an hour, is that right? Something like that? Well, I don't know what time I started, so this is a pointless question, but
read as long as you want. technically like more than 15 minutes would be ideal, but like 0.
Are you timing? Because like I have no idea. But
I
so
wasn't.
I've got to get to 15 minutes to get paid. Is that the deal?
I mean, technically,
Not that I'm not enjoying myself.
you just do whatever you feel.
I'm gonna do that.
I think
Yeah, and I hope that whenever you say question and answer, like it sounds so formal and everybody gets like uptight and then nothing happens. So afterwards we're a small group. If you want, I would be happy just to have some conversation. If you have things you want to ask or comments you want to make or you just want to chat, that'd be cool. So hopefully we'll have a bit of time for that afterwards. So this is the latest book, Field Notes for the Self, available from fine bookstores like right here. And as I said, it came out in March of this year from my good friends at University of Regina Press. Hoping I get a kickback from them for all this promotional work I'm doing. This poem is called Autumn with Blackbirds. The blackbirds are doing it again, their individual spirits moving as a single body. Flight patterns are Chinese characters and Arabic script and Cree syllabics. They all spell the same word, winter. Yes, the blackbirds are doing it again. Somewhere beyond the horizon is what they have dreamed for an entire season. And while you too have been dreaming, you cannot even name the things you have seen. Black horse, meteorites like a necklace of fire across the midnight horizon. No stars. And now your spirit too is restless. The shrinking light, not enough, it says, not enough. I will starve the way the old ones starved. Even the dogs grew thin, ribs jutting, curved like a thin slice of moon, lips peeled back into a grin. And what can you say? What will your answer be? What ceremony will you drag your heaviness into? The lodge reveals the dark knowing of the body, its practice of slow unbecoming, the becoming of its own absence. Light extinguished like the light of this fading day, slowly, almost imperceptibly extinguished. Suppose I should see if I can find a happy poem, hey? Maybe this one. I was kind of nervous driving over here tonight, and I don't know if it was so much about reading as just like being in the presence of people. This all feels very strange. This is called Desire, Meditation for the Spring Equinox. A month ago, a snowy owl in the middle of the grid road when you were driving home after dark, its eyes two perfect full moons in the headlights as you slowed, before it lifted its too thin, almost spirit now body into flight, disappeared into the February snow-dark stubbled fields. Spring now, Cottonwood Creek in thaw, you watch a doe move slow as afternoon light. Her curved hooves leave quotation marks in the soft clay-banked hillside. The language between those marks now vanished, now silent. Her dun-colored body concealed in the stand of aspen and birch behind the faded broken barn in the distance. You wonder if affliction is nearer to the truth of things. No, neither closer nor farther than beauty is, you think. Today, the memory of all your dead drove you to your knees. It is the best place from which to see the beetles in the dirt, each a black, hard-shelled casket that will bear your flesh into the next world and the next. Study that. Practice that kind of knowing. As a child, you tried to live inside the sound of river water flowing over stone, but the world called you back. Now the path has become narrow, very narrow, but not secular, not that, not quite. There are no deities to bring home, only a red field stone, a white river stone. But what more could you wish? Plant wolf willow, plant buffalo berry. The moon tonight cut in half. How did this happen? You suspect the winged maple seeds. Perhaps their turning blades, after carving the blue afternoon, continued their fall through the body of the earth, out the other side, into that other world, sliced the moon like a ripened fruit, orange. You know this cannot be true. You know these are only words. You know metaphor does not change what is. Still, your destitute eyes, your mendicant mind, gather it all in, grasp at some teaching from this seeing. Perhaps you are in search of a self. The world answers back in its own time, in its own way. After midnight, unable to sleep, you stand on your front deck having a cigarette. Somewhere the sun crosses the equator. Down the dim-lit street comes the single-eyed half-Manx feral cat. He could teach you a thing or two about the nature of suffering. With his coming, the wind rises, sings the old songs, is torn in the branches of the elm, flayed like the fringes of a ghost dance shirt. This one, you know, when I wrote this, the title made sense to me, and now I don't think I have any idea why this title is with this poem. But maybe by the time I read the poem again, I'll have some clever theory or something. And I know I stole it from somewhere. I remember I was reading one day, and I ran across this, and I just thought it was cool, so I thought I would steal it for a title for a poem, and I think I probably just slapped it on this one. I don't know. Anyway, I think it's a cool title. The title is, Sometimes we are only a spring garden some deity has left its boots in. This is for little Elmer Lundy, who's an older cousin named after my father. So my father was Big Elmer and he was Little Elmer. So sometimes we're only a spring garden some deity has left its boots in. Early June, early morning. The apple blossom's white opening is not virginal, not that kind of birth, but that pure, the patches of deep red at its center, not stigmata, but another kind of holiness. The bees hum, not hymns from another world. This world, they buzz. It is just this. Red-winged blackbirds cling to the bulrushes at the edge of the deep pond beside the highway, on the long curve just north of the graveyard, where your father will one day be buried. It is the drive to your uncle's farm. You are 11, your father still young and indestructible, at the wheel of the metallic forest green two-door 76 Chevy Impala, the windows down, his thick forearm resting in sun at the top of the door. As the car speeds by, the birds screech, take flight over water, flashes of blood streak the air. In 15 minutes, you will be tramping the edge of the field with your older cousin, peering into willows, aspen, birch, in search of grouse, as happy as you will ever be as a child. For supper, lean white breast meat, spiced, coated in crushed cracker crumbs, fried in butter. Years later, in his small house in northern Alberta, your cousin lives alone, surrounded by death. The heads of deer, elk, lynx, black bear, with their glassy stairs mounted on the walls in place of family photographs. Those long past warm October afternoons of shared solitude served as practice for adult life, for the men you would become. The air is hot and then it's cold. Season after season passes like that. Time passes not by us but through. Each of our bodies, entire, yours and mine, like a window or a door. And each day the same as the one before. Every day the world is a restless dog, always wanting, always coming in or going out. Just think of the work our bodies do while our minds are somewhere else goofing off. The body might wonder why spirit is always inside it and everywhere at once. But it has other work to do. It holds its silence and leaves jigsaw puzzles to the mind. You will pass the day in your backyard with the dogs moving quietly among the blooming apple, the wolf willow, and the stones. You will drink coffee, smoke cigarettes, and skip your supper, your fasting an act of attention. After sunset, geese are on the move. In the dark of this moonless night, you want to follow them into the far fields and sleep. You want that kind of communion. Their voices, the only sign they are here, passing through the late middle age of your life. This one is called Your Mother's Skin Still Carries the Scent of Wood Stove Smoke. And I don't know if you need to know this or not to understand the poem. I can't really remember at the moment. I know some of this is in here, but my mother's a Cree woman from northern Manitoba. We're members of the Barren Lands First Nation up near Brochet, Manitoba, but she never actually grew up on the reserve. She grew up with her parents on a trap line away from the community. So she actually was raised as an only child. It's a long, complicated story, but she was raised as an only child on the trap line. So she grew up there with her mom and dad away from the community. So that's a bit of background. Your mother's skin still carries the scent of wood stove smoke. The clouds this early evening are the ash-gray smoke of a fire that's been burning in the long-gone-to-dust now bones of your ancestors, centuries in the ground. Those who spoke Nehiowayan, and yes, the smoke from the fire in the bones of the buffalo, wolves, and grizzlies who also used to roam the northern prairie up to the edges of the boreal, where plains become parkland, before the mixed deciduous and coniferous bush sings with the voices of rivers and wind. Today you read in a book a poem by a woman you admire, a poem about the inaudible movement of the earth through space. No, that's wrong, you wanted to tell her. What is beyond the range of our hearing is not inaudible, is not the same as silence, you wanted to say. You think she might agree with you. She might explain the statement as a perspectival truth about the nature of what is human. Thus, its more general untruth would emphasize the limitations of our existence. It's not an answer you like, but what good would it do to tell the woman the stories your mother tells about growing up on that trap line in the northern Manitoba bush, coming out just twice a year for supplies and the temporary consolations of human company? No one would mistake such stories for truth, least of all you. How long has it been since anyone mistook stories for truth? When it comes to questions of epistemology, what kind of threadbare answer is narrative? Still, you think of your mother as a child, as she hides behind an outcropping of rock while her father lights the fuse of the dynamite to blast samples to take into the mining company's lab in the hope of making a bit of hard cash to buy flour, bullets, and more dynamite. Perhaps a store-bought rag doll for the girl. In the long, dark, solitary hours of winter, while her father is away checking the traps and her mother is chopping a hole in the lake ice to draw water, the girl talks to the doll. And you, now at your age and distance from that scene, cannot hear what the girl whispered to her doll. Did she call it sister? Scold it for being disobedient? Tell it the priest would come and take it to the faraway red brick school? The girl told the doll stories. Now you tell stories as well. And what good does any of it do? You sit alone, just as lonely as that girl, and you realize the only stories worth telling are the ones that help you create a self you can live and die with, one you can embrace and call your own, though you know that's only a story too. The clouds this evening are the striated gray of the single owl feather you found in the dewed grass beneath the apple trees. The last light is fading in the west, and the way the clouds twist and separate, you swear there are wings beating just beyond them, wings that, like immense gravity, bend the eons-old starlight. When you finish your final cigarette and rise from where you sit on the front step, your back aches as if from carrying a great weight. Memory that stretches beyond anything you can articulate, beyond anything you can claim. So just two more. This is called The Beginning of Understanding. The way the cactus stores water within its body, you store memory. It keeps you alive while holding death close, as near as each breath. This one, and then the next, that intimate. Walking in the bush as a young boy, along the riverbank, the muddy fur just where it empties into the red deer, letting the old water and stone song carry you into another world, just a step past or into the aspen copse. The gaze of a white-tailed doe naming you in a language you are still trying to learn. Last night, just after midnight, a snowy owl in a silent glide beneath the lowest branch of the cottonwood, like a ghost, not like a cartoon figure, but like a real ghost. And you would know. You have seen them come and go through the back door of your home, left ajar for the dogs on warm summer nights, July. Sometimes they sit and watch you sip your tea, but they do not speak, unless it's an infrasonic rumble, something akin to the groan of a logging truck passing on a gravel road. Yes, ghosts, like the last exhalation of a miner buried in a collapse, the wisp twist of breath like a spirit traceable in the cold, deep air, a mile down in the dark ground. But you have never been in the bottom of that pit. How can this be more than imagination? How can it be a vestigial memory? This world and the others are like the rings of trees, tightly bound but permeable, composed of everything they are not. We too, my friend, are like that. There was a Swedish poet who spoke of a self breaking up in the evening, abandoning everything while the sun drops below the horizon, the light, thin, fragile, the way a spider's web seems to be. Daily you approach your own death, now closer than you have ever been. And slowly you have begun to see, to recognize you are the breaking up and the abandoning you have practiced secretly, even a secret from yourself, every fraction of your life. You are practicing it now. Okay, I'm just going to read you one more. And this is, I made reference to a boxer earlier who the commentators said is blessed with everything except humility. So I'm gonna read a poem that starts with a quotation from another poem of mine. Okay, I quite regularly steal lines and images and stuff from other poets, but for some reason this time I thought it'd be a good idea to steal a line from myself. So, which is not really stealing, is it? Stealing from an earlier version of myself? I don't know. So the poem begins with slate gray late autumn sky, which isn't even really, it's not even a good line. Like if you're gonna steal a line, steal a good line, right? So, but that's the line at the beginning of the poem that it starts with, and it's just from an earlier poem of mine from one of the first two books. But the poem is called Kintsugi, which is a way of repairing broken porcelain. It was, I guess you use lacquer and gold dust or silver or whatever. You can sort of paint over the cracks and paint it back together, kind of. So the poem is called Kintsugi. It's for my friend Nathan, who's in Japan right now. And it begins as promised. Slate gray late autumn sky, end of October and rain, light drizzle but as thick in the air as the aphids were just a week ago when the weather was still warm. And you have written that phrase before. You are repeating yourself. All the stories you tell are the same, not even slight variations these days. This is how much your life, your seeing, has narrowed, contracting like molecules of moisture as the temperature drops. Only a handful of words, like the tiny black dried seeds you gathered from the lupine today. Now you sit in the chill of the house, the fire unlit, staring out the window, watching a wolf spider trapped between the inner glass and the outer screen. And you tell them over again, like counting and recounting malas on a bead. Your teenaged father, not yet quite a man, blackening the eye of his mother with his fist, down at the barn, while his father was away in town to buy some nails, or sitting in the hotel bar, drinking foam-topped glasses of beer with his buddies from the war, until the resurrected memories blurred. Or your mother away binging for 3 days in the bars of that northern mining town before returning to your father with his fists clenched, heavy as ball-peen hammers that he put to work putting her in the hospital. Or your brother stealing your money and car after a night of drinking in the Berry on 20th Street in downtown Saskatoon. How you tracked him down at a house party the next day and didn't hit him even though you wanted to. Hank's I'm so lonesome I could cry, barely audible through the static on the radio and the swaying bodies of strangers everywhere when you took your first deep pull from the neck of the Jack Daniels bottle. Slate gray late autumn sky, you say, burdensome as memory, as the weight of flesh, skin, blood, and bones. And your mind, again today, spinning like a wheel in the mud. And what exactly have you said? That the sky is heavy, gray, and cold as stone? Do you expect anyone to take that as an adequate metaphor for your spirit, your soul? Fine-grained, foliated, homogeneous, metamorphic rock, clay and volcanic ash, everything that you are. Listen, my friend. Yesterday, I sat on the back deck with a cup of coffee and a cigarette. The 3 dogs jumping and barking at the circling of a half-dozen broad-winged hawks, just above the tops of the spruce trees, all of them the rare dark morph. And it's true. I felt something close to joy. Maybe it was simply a kind of peace. I don't know, and I am comfortable in that unknowing. I just remember something in me lifting like a wing, rising like the voices of the dogs as they leapt and danced on their hind legs. Something in me was pieced back together, like a fine but shattered Chinese porcelain bowl. Not healed, just not quite broken in the same way anymore. Thank you.